Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. Do me a favor, give me a quick little sound check because I'm trying to make sure I'm logged in and I can't actually see if I'm logged in. So somebody give me a quick sound check. I'm going to get started in 1 second. I feel like LinkedIn occasionally drops new features and makes it hard for me to totally track. I love LinkedIn, don't get me wrong. But sometimes I'm like, come on, quit changing the features while I'm trying to go live. Yeah, for some reason I can't see the live. So I'm going to assume we're going live. There we go. Thank you, Kami. Okay, so let's get rocking and rolling. I like starting first with a tip for those of you who show up early and on time. And my tip for you is coming straight out of Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. If you've been with me long enough, then you know that is my all-time favorite business book. Thanks, Cecilia. I got a text. Anyways, it's my all-time favorite book because it's a great set of habits that I can rotate every week, every month. I can rotate working on a different habit. But I've been reading that book for 20 years. I've got it so much that I keep the 7 habits right here in a card. And just so you know, on the back is a reminder on how I manage time. But the habit I wanted to point out today that I really like is think win-win, right? And that's Stephen Covey's habit 4. You would think I'd have them memorized after 20 years, but I don't. Habit 4, though, win-win. The reason I like it as it relates to today's training is because it talks about there's 4 stages of relationships you might have. You can have win-win, like I said, and you can have lose-lose, where everybody loses. Or you could have win-lose, where you lose but I win, or the opposite, where you win and I lose. Win-lose, lose-win, and lose-lose are all bad positions to be in. We want to be in a win-win position. And so when you're thinking about networking and building relationships in the government contracting space, and you're thinking about teaming on particular opportunities, think about win-win, right? Always come at it. Another way I like to talk about is giver's gain. Just give. Don't give so much that you're selfless and you're not thinking about you and your company, but give and see how you can bring people together, because you really can develop some great relationships that'll work well for your company long term. All right, that's just a quick tip for those of you who showed up early and on time. It's my way to say thank you for doing that. Let me get my slides shared. Bouncing around, 2 seconds, 1 second. All right, I'm ready. And hopefully you are too. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to be talking about proposals. People often ask me to share tips about proposal writing. And just so we put this in perspective, right? I'm a salesperson first. Proposal writing is a task. That's different than a person who's a full-time proposal writer or full-time proposal manager. That's their profession. I have a lot of friends in our community, right, who that's their world. And I come at proposal writing from a salesperson's perspective, a business developer or capture manager type person. And that's what I'm going to share today that we're going to be starting with. A winning proposal, I like to say, is not just compliant, it's compelling. That's really important. A winning proposal is not compliant. Every proposal is compliant, theoretically. A winning proposal is compelling. It wows the readers. It wows the evaluators. Imagine your proposal, it goes to the government, and there's like 3 to 10 people who are looking at the proposals to try to pick a winner. And so those people, I want you to think about wowing them, not just showing up and saying, hey, I'm compliant, but something different about your company, something that makes it out there. And that's a winning proposal. I want you to imagine what it feels like if you're the federal buyer, right? And you're evaluating 5 or 10 proposals. How would you feel if they basically all said the same? They basically all looked the same, right? How would you feel if they were all like 12-point font and packed wall to wall with just a ton of words? How would you feel when you're seeing that and you're going from proposal to proposal? Imagine going through 5 and 10 proposals. Now imagine how you would feel if you've gone through, like, let's say 3 or 4, and you pick one up and it's different. It wowed you, right? It felt refreshing. How would you feel? Writing proposals shouldn't just be about dotting the I's or crossing the T's. It really is about wowing the buyers. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And that's what we're going to talk about in Simple Tips for Proposal Writing. It's not about the end game of proposal writing, but it's about what can you do to prepare yourself to write those winning proposals and write proposals that wow the audience. I know some of you are already doing this. Keep engaging in the chat. This is your network, and I want to make sure that you're meeting each other. Put your company name, your core competency. 2 or 3 words is really the best because it makes it easy for people to remember who you are. In today's topic or training, we're going to be talking about proposal writing tips, for small business government contractors, but also really anybody could follow this because this could work for larges as well. They just have more resources. I'm going to break the training into 4 sections. First, I just want to talk about the proposal life cycle from my perspective, right? When does it start getting going all the way to, let's say, the end of the life cycle is when it goes out the door. Second, I want to talk about tips around the writing. So there's the third thing I'll talk about is tips in the writing and when we're doing that. But the one around the writing is like, how can you really make sure your activities are contributing to the output of having a winning proposal for your company? So bullet 3, bullet 4, I'm going to break down some of those tips about pre-writing and writing. And then I want to give you 3 tips at the end that are, I put here top tips for successful writing proposals, winning proposals. It's always fun when you put a slide in that says top tips because that's debatable. So let's just say those are my top tips for today. My top tips might change tomorrow. My top tips might change depending on what you're doing. But these are 3 tips that if you do them, you will start writing more winning proposals. You are certainly going to start writing more proposals that wow the buyer. And that's what I want you to do. If you don't know me, my name is Neil McDonald. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for your proposal writing activities, right? I don't want it to be this compliance exercise. I want you to have predictable, repeatable wow factor to your proposals so that you're winning more. If you haven't already, subscribe to our Government Contracting Success newsletter. I'd love to have you in there. And also track on October 28th. You can see right here, if you're looking at my screen, we have a virtual networking event. This will be our 3rd one in the last few weeks. And they're well attended, right? So the last one had almost 100 people. This next one, I expect to have double that because it's a virtual event, right? It's October 28th. Just go to govconinAbox.com/networking, and you'll see a button right there that just allows you to register. But come join us. It's a great way to go beyond just the chat. I bring you into a virtual environment and basically allow you to network with a whole bunch of other people. So many people have written me after the last networking event, which was, I literally feel like it was this past Monday. It was like 5 days ago, how they have met people and they're already having meetings this week, right? Networking events are not finding a customer to sale. It's about building your network so you can meet more people. Hopefully you'll come join us in there. One other thing, I noticed people doing this in chat, and I appreciate them doing that, is let us know what city and state you're coming from. That's always fun for all of us to see where you're at. I want to congratulate the people in the 100 Club, the companies that are in the 100 Club. This is in GovCon in a Box, our platform, where we provide you a federal visibility score from 0 to 100. There's 370,000 small businesses or so who are currently selling to the federal government. And those that reach a 100 federal visibility score are right here. Kevin Wayne Johnson of the Johnson Leadership Group is our most recent one. In fact, 15, 20 minutes ago, he shot me an email. Hey, I'm in the 100 Club. And I'm like, yes, I can celebrate you today. So I'm excited. He incrementally moved up his score from where it was at to where it is now at 100 in 4 stages. And he just did the changes we say. You can check your score out. You can get the tips for what you need to do in the government's tools to make yourself fully visible to the federal buyer. All of that is free in govconinAbox.com. Go check it out. And then also congratulations to these other companies that are really doing a great job. All right, clearly, if you've not been here before, you've probably figured this out. I talk at a fire hose pace, and you can always slow it down on the replay to half speed, right? But I like to get a lot of information in to share as much as I can about a particular topic in the 30-minute window that I have. So we got 20 minutes left, and let's get rocking and rolling talking about the proposal lifecycle. So if you talk to anybody about a proposal lifecycle, depending on their position in a company, they'll describe it maybe a little differently. So these 8 steps that I'm going to lay out, this is a proposal life cycle from a sales guy's perspective. Really, in federal government or the federal market, we call this a capture person. I'm the kind of person that finds an opportunity and chases it down to the win, right? So that world, that's where my biggest expertise is. And so in the proposal lifecycle, I want to walk you through how I do it. And I literally do this with some of my customers right now. So it's not something I did 10 years ago. I'm constantly refining it for myself, for my customer benefits, and to be able to teach you. So the step 1 in the proposal lifecycle, and let's assume step 0 is I found an opportunity that had a title that looked good, right? I was like, okay, that's a lead. Sometimes we call it an identified opportunity. It's not qualified at all. So the first step in the proposal lifecycle for me, this is where I'm starting to think about the opportunity from the proposal's perspective. That's different than thinking about an opportunity from the business developer's perspective of filling a pipeline. So the first thing I do with an opportunity is I complete a requirements gap analysis, what I call an RGA, or a lot of us call an RGA, right? And a requirement gap analysis, fundamentally what it is looking at the opportunity's requirements. I go into the performance work statement, I look at the task areas, and I lay them out in a way that allows me to score my company's strength against those requirements. By doing this, I'm aligning what I think our skills and talent are to that task, as well as our past performance. Both of those, skill and experience, line up to give me the score. So the first step is requirement gap analysis. I'm not going to talk to you about bid, no bid, and where I'm making decisions. I'm just going to assume through this entire life cycle that, yes, I love this opportunity. Yes, I'm going to write it. So let's just move forward. But the first thing I do is analyze, I do our requirements gap analysis. When I do that, and I've got an understanding of how strong we are on an opportunity, the next thing I do is I go to the whiteboard. Right? You can do this any way you want, but the reason I like a whiteboard is if you look on there, it's a 10-foot whiteboard with no lines. There is nothing in there restricting my thoughts that they have to fit dress right dress. If you storyboard or do early solutioning or thinking on a Word document, then everything's dress right dress. Everything's perfect. If you've ever seen my whiteboard when there's stuff on it, there's nothing perfect on the whiteboard. And it's a bunch of craziness in my head that I throw there. But the idea of storyboarding for me is I am an expert at what I do. So my last company, I was doing Microsoft SharePoint. I knew exactly the work. And so I could take that performance work statement for a SharePoint related piece of work, and I could go there and say, okay, what do I need to do? They're looking for this set of tasks. How would I do that? It begins to help me understand the work, what's involved in it from a life cycle, right? There's some ramp up period. There's some O&M or operation and maintenance to an activity. I need to understand that, but I could literally do that an hour, 2 hours max, and I would have a really solid understanding of the solutioning. This is why I say you should have somebody who knows the work that you sell really well, and they could do that. Step 3, I then do a quick initial FTE estimate. A lot of us sometimes try to go to FPDS, find out how much money the last contract was, go look at a GSA schedule. I'm like, no, that's the last kind of way of validating pricing, et cetera. What I want is for me or you to walk up to the whiteboard when I'm looking at the solutioning and go, well, what would it take? If you can't do that, then you need to begin to rethink, are you writing to the proposals that you're best at? For me, I knew exactly which person, which labor category, et cetera, because I just knew it was Jane, it was John, it was Tom who were going to do the work. And as your company gets bigger, you can do that. I have a company that just started. It's one person, but they're a cybersecurity person. Theoretically, they know all the work that goes into cybersecurity. So theoretically, they should be able to go, well, I probably need 2 of me and 1 junior or something like that. But you understand it. Step 3, figure out the FTE estimate. Step 4, what kind of teaming do I need? This comes right out of the RGA. Step 1, if I look at the RGA and I see weaknesses, those are the teammates I need for step 4. So I'm understanding that need better, but I also begin to go, well, do I need a teammate who maybe is at the agency or a teammate who maybe has a clearance or this kind of thing? So it's beyond just the task areas. I'm looking at a couple other things in step 4, and I'm beginning to identify right away, who do I need? And all this can be done, by the way, in days. Right? The things that take time is when you have to go back to the customer. It's hard to get a meeting fast and things like that. But if I have a PWS in a single day, I can do everything I'm telling you I'm doing as long as I've got the solutioning part. So step 5, right now we move into a little bit longer. Maybe I'll move it into the second day is I want to do a draft outline, and I, again, start on the whiteboard, then I go to Microsoft Word, but I want to do a draft outline that's just laying out how do I want to respond. And I am not one of those people who does this compliance exercise that if the government lays out a requirement document that has these task areas this way, that my proposal will be the same. I don't agree with that, right? I don't say that the other ways are wrong. I'm saying I think there's a different way. So if there's 2 or 3 paths to the same destination, let's all take it. They will all get to the same destination. I just think my path's, the one I like. And what I mean by this is when I'm looking at the outline, first I'm trying to tell a story, not be compliant. I can come back with compliance later. I can guide the government's compliance mindset to go where I want for them to see I'm compliant. But if I draft an outline the way I would like, it's going to be compelling, right? So really understanding, or me demonstrating that I understand the work. And then in number 5, this is where I also quickly go, what kind of graphics? I'm a fan of a graphic per page. So an example is whether I have a call out box or a process diagram. Right then and there when I'm doing the outlines, I'm like, well, I could use this here. And remember, if you know the work, this isn't hard. If you stick to a clear, focused offer for your company, this isn't hard, right? In the beginning, you don't have anything reusable, but theoretically, you know the work. Number 6. This is when I get into capture planning, and I don't want to go too far in here, but really, I look at everything I've done so far and go, what don't I know? And that lends me to my capture activity that I need to do. And all capture means is going back to the teammates or to the government and trying to get information, trying to influence the requirements of the acquisition approach, or even just to get questions answered. Number 7 is when I start going into a full draft response. This is where I have pricing. And number 8 is I just rework it. If you look at people who are doing it fancier, they call it color teams. It really is just a bunch of drafts. And when we're small businesses, color teams are a distraction. It really is about, and I think I said really is 10 times there, but it's about just writing a good draft and then improving that draft. Last thing I'll say about this proposal lifecycle, a reminder, I'm speaking from a salesperson's perspective of how I look at this. So a business owner who's a salesperson first, a proposal writer, a proposal manager, they might tweak it a little differently. So I'm not trying to debate them. I'm saying this is what works for me to be able to write winning proposals at the end. All right, so here's some tips around like the activity around writing. So you have the exercise of actually going to Microsoft Word and typing stuff in, and then you have all this other stuff. So these are random tips that I have for you that enable me to write successful proposals. That's where I'm trying to go. The first thing is pick one agency, one department, like Department of Army or even NAVC within the Navy. When you pick one, you really get a chance to understand that agency better than they understand themselves. You pursue opportunities where you're not having to relearn every agency's mission and way they operate, et cetera. If you pick one department and really dive in there, then you can maximize that reuse of your knowledge and your research. Number 2 here is learn the decision makers, the selection board. This is solid capture 101. When you have an opportunity, you need to figure out who's going to be on that selection board, the ones reading the proposal. It is a very high skill set task, right? You can't just really walk in there. For all of us who are experienced, this is one of the hardest things, is to figure out who is going to be the decision maker or who are the people influencing that opportunity decision, and how do I get in there and get talk to them. But if you get good at that, and if you're in one agency, you will start building the relationships with them and have those relationships long term. Going with number 1 in the whole research, know and use their language. Read their strategic plans. If you do cybersecurity, there's cybersecurity strategic plans specific to how they talk about cybersecurity. Even something as simple as cybersecurity spelled 2 words, a hyphenated word, or 1 word, right? Little things like that begin to align you to them. They're like, oh, it's not that they will give you extra credit for using their language. You will get subliminal demerits, if you will, for not using the language. So if you keep saying cybersecurity with 2 words, but they always use 1, they'll notice you in a bad way. But if you say just 1 word, cybersecurity, and that's what they use, they won't think worse or better of you. They'll just think, oh, that's right, and they'll move on, right? Number 4 here, relentlessly pursue pain points and objectives. When you have an opportunity, don't just look at the requirement document, understand the pain points and explore them further. I describe pain points as either implied needs or implied pain, right? Or explicit pain. My shoulder kind of hurts. Maybe I'm not even acknowledging it, but I feel it or something because I type off. But then once it really is starting to hurt, I'm grabbing. I'm like, I need to get rid of this. I can't sleep. It's making me angrier, whatever. You need to find out the sales pain points of a customer. So their requirements, take it further than what they write in the RFI or the RFPs. Take it further and try to understand that. And same thing with their objectives, right? If they say we have this objective 1, 2, or 3, use that 5 why exercise. Why is that objective important? Because of such and such. Yeah, but why is such and such important? And just ask why 5 times. You don't have to annoy them by asking it, but ask yourselves. Try to understand it deeper and deeper. And that's what I mean by relentlessly pursue pain points and objectives. Clearly understanding those two will take your proposal far above your competitors. Capture is about shaping the opportunity. So if you want to improve your proposal, shape the opportunity, get in and talk about your the solution or technical approach that you're thinking. Talk about it with the customer before the RFP drops. And of course, this is sales, right? Sometimes we don't have that luxury, but try to get that luxury on your opportunity. So you have 6, 12 months to do it. Maximize your teaming. I already talked about RGAs and weakness, but also maximize your teaming for just having really good complementary services companies with you. So if you do elevator services, as an example, and you could kind of do construction to make everything nice after you install an elevator, well, maybe you team up with that other company and they do it way better, right? There's a difference between having somebody who can do it and somebody who's an expert do it. There's certain things. For example, I can write a proposal. I am an expert at getting in the door sales, right? It's better for me to focus on the sales part and team up with like Juliette Fletcher, who's a expert at proposal writing. She can do sales. She's an expert there, and I'm an expert here. When we team together, we do so much more. And I want you to think about, where can I team every single opportunity that I get a chance to? Last tip I have around the writing is make sure you build a solid relationship with your local Apex Accelerator counselors. One of the things about the PTACs, Apex, is that they will help you review your opportunities to a degree, right? And review your draft responses. They're not going to write it for you, but imagine having an experienced set of eyes for free look at your proposal. That's what these guys make available. You have to build that relationship strong enough that you've always got it warm. And if you call Sally or you call John, they're going to take the call and schedule a meeting. Don't do it last minute. You want to be able to give them enough time. Okay, so now we're in the, I got 8 minutes left and two major slides to do. But now we're talking about tips for in the writing that I want to give you. And just as a reminder, in case you're coming in a couple of seconds later, my advice is from a salesperson's perspective. These are tips that I'm giving you today. A proposal manager, proposal writer will give you equally valuable tips, but they might give you tips from a different angle. So keep these tips in mind. It doesn't make anybody else's tips less than. These are just really good tips that I find work for me and for my customers. So the first one is, I put here, remember social media when you're writing your proposals. Less is more. If you look at social media, if you look at the chat, and by the way, I can't see anybody's chat, so I'm not judging. At the moment, I'm only seeing my slides. I can't see the chat. But if you look at the chat and somebody just writes enough words that it doesn't wrap, right? We can read that really fast. But if somebody writes so many words that it's like that many wraps, 10, 20 lines, we're not going to read it. We're going to glance at it. We're going to maybe browse over it, but we'll move on because there'll be something else. Well, think about that, how social media feeds are, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. You're kind of going through, and the whole point of it is what's capturing my eye to stop. And I want you to think of writing a proposal that way. How do you stop their eyes, right? And one of the easiest ways is to just have smaller paragraphs. So instead of writing a paragraph this big, write it this big. We pop to the next sentence. I like that tip. Next one is, this is just a foundation to the proposal writing, but remember the 4 C's of proposal writing. You want it to be clear, like basically any 8th grader could read it. Any 8th grader should be able to read your proposal and kind of understand it. Think about some of the people who are going to be reviewing it. They're not actually in the program office doing the work. They're reviewing it for whatever version they're looking at. But some of these people, they're responsible for buying multiple things. And so they're not experts at it. 8th graders, for the most part in America, are pretty competent. They should read. That's a good level. By the way, if you don't know this, most of us write at the 8th grade level, and I think they say like Wall Street journalists or something right at the 12th grade level, right? It's not like we're all writing at this college level out there. And so you want to make it clear. Compliant is just addressing the shall statements. Compelling and convincing, I've already been talking about a fair amount. Compelling is wow. You want them to look and go, oh my God, I want that. Like that is so impressive. I like it. But the government has a responsibility of not stopping at the wow, right? They have to slide into the convincing, which is, okay, I love everything you're saying. I want to spend billions of dollars with you, but convince me you're the company who can do this, or convince me any company can do this. And that's where you come in with your past performances, blah, 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 right? So you come in and convince them through data and evidence that you're the one to do it. Compelling is that wow factor. The third bullet, I got to learn how to use my fingers. The third bullet, I want you to maximize graphics and boxes. And then really this goes to bullet number 4 as well, embracing white space. Don't be afraid of it. I've seen people go wall to wall with text because they're trying to fill it all in. You wouldn't like reading that, so don't make the government read it. But maximize graphics and boxes. And I don't mean fill a graphic in with 1,000 words either. Figure out how to tell your entire page story or narrative in a graphic. And there's people out there, and I'm sorry, names are eluding me for a second, but there's people out there who talk about how to maximize proposal writing, et cetera. You can go watch all the, this one person I engage with constantly, and she's going to hate me for not forgetting her name at the moment, but and I'll repost on her, but she only comes at proposal writing from the graphic perspective, which is amazing. And I'll bring her on sometime to teach. But graphics and boxes help us quickly pop around. For example, the red box I have here, call out boxes rock, right? Put that in the chat. Call out boxes rock if you agree. But do that. Every single page, in my opinion, should pop me around to that page. I go, ooh, I like this. I like this. The white space makes me feel like I'm not, constrained or claustrophobic in your page to a degree. All right. So the last tip here I have, or last slide I have here is 3 tips I wanted to give you for successful proposal writing. I could ask 50 people and we would have 50 different versions of this slide, right? Because we would all give you 3 top tips for successful proposal writing. But I really like these 3 because they help me drive towards success now with the customers I have. And it helped me certainly when I built my own company. The first thing is write to the same scope over and over and over again. We did Microsoft SharePoint, so we knew it. We looked for SharePoint opportunities. In particular, we would look for SharePoint migration from data center to clouds. We knew that cold, and so we could write to it over and over again, which lends us to the second bullet, having reusable material each time. You want to look at what you wrote and go, what's best about what we just wrote? Let's move that over here so that we're using this the next time. We're not just kind of cutting and pasting from a previous proposal, but we're creating a body of intellectual property. That intellectual property is your response to an RFP. So that reusable material needs to be considered part of your proposal writing. At the end of the proposal, you submit it and you instantly go to the next task before you do anything else and pull out the best of what you got. It doesn't have to be a ton. It could be a paragraph. It could be a single sentence about, wow, we nailed it right there. And the last thing is improve based on debriefing from the government. If you submit a proposal, you can get feedback from the government. The official feedback is called a debrief, and that only happens so often. But it doesn't matter. You can get feedback one way or another. And forget about the ones who don't give it to you. Celebrate the ones who do give it to you and learn from it. Because if you're writing to the same thing over and over again and you're getting feedback, you will get much better at writing proposals that are winning proposals, and they go to the federal buyer who's going to choose you and say, this is perfect. All right, I know this is really fast as we move forward. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. Federal buyers are just like you. They don't want to read wall-to-wall text. And so don't make them read it when you write a response. Ensure that response is visually appealing. Throw in some graphics. Embrace white space. And remember, the 4 C's of proposal writing are clear, compliant, compelling, and convincing. When you do that, you're going to wow your customers every time. They might not award a contract every time, but you want your proposals to be considered winning every time by them. Last thing, make sure you're registered for our networking event. Go to govconinAbox.com/networking, and you can find a button to register. I'd love to have you come in there. The sooner you register, the less I have to invite a whole bunch of people I know are going to come. And we'd love to be able to introduce you to a whole bunch of other people in our network. As you move forward, we're at the end of the time, but I just want to remind you that government contracting and proposal writing, they're not secrets. They're just processes. Part of the process is enjoying the weekend. I hope you do. I will see you next week.